What is up, guys? Eric here from EBM Productions, here with a review on the final episode of season 4 of Invincible. And for once, I actually have a notepad full of things I want to talk about in sequence of the events of the episode. Um, Overall rating of this episode before we get into the rest. Um, Again, 7 out of 10. The reason why I'm giving it a 7 is because there's a lot of stuff I think I missed. And I'm going to be dead honest. It's because I'm tired. I'm so tired. As most people know, I have Crohn's disease with severe complications. I'm very tired on certain days. And today is one of those days. Like, even my reaction time is a bit off. So, whoop-de-doo. Probably missed a few stuff. Now, this is the second time I watched this episode, actually. Because it was that good. It really ended this season well. Now, I think most people would have been like, yes, we wanted a big boom for an ending, but how this one ends, and we'll get through that, is, to me, perfect. Because the big climax was the previous episode and all the crazy stuff that happened there. I will mention this real quick. There is aspects of these fights in this specific season and from now going forward that could have been more amped up. It could have been gorier, actually, which is crazy to say. The comics is crazy of all. However, I think they matched the right balance. It was the right balance of just how much is needed for the TV show to not get absolutely age restricted or whatever, or maybe even banned because people cry out that this is too much. Anyway, so let's start with everything. I want to count, actually, while you guys are here, how many points I can write down. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, that's actually nice. 12 parts that was progressively interesting throughout the show. Throughout this episode, I like the changes that they made to Mark's flashbacks, etc. Which, by the way, this reminds me, I've already read the comics. I've seen the comics ahead of time, etc. The reason why is earlier this year, I just couldn't wait. I was so excited, I rewatched the whole show, and I had to. At first, I was like, let me just see what season 3 would be like. And when this season essentially ended, well, this part, I was like, I can't. And I just finished the whole thing. A friend of mine did the same, and we're still enjoying the show. However, we kind of know what's going to happen, unless they change things, which I love it when there's small changes. However, there's a few things that I wish they completely changed. Like with the storyline of Amber's abusive boyfriend that Mark in the comics stood up for. Because Amber is a horrible character, and I'm happy they chopped that out. It's a good example of something that's changed in the comics, in the show from the comics. Okay, let's start. So, first off, Mark has crazy PTSD, and I'll get deeper into it later, but he has crazy PTSD at this point because of what happened. And I think it's because of a culmination of all the past events, and then the previous episode's craziness that just happened, and that he lost. He lost bad, and it was just as bad as the end of spoilers. Click off if you don't want spoilers and you haven't watched the show. It's the same kind of loss that he took as season 1's ending. Well, I'm not going to say who he fought, unless you have watched the show. You can already put 2 and 2 together. But definitely, it was similar. Very similar. He had no chance. Cool. So I liked that it starts with one of these visions, and then they don't do what they did in the comic, where there's a few roped together. It is bits and pieces of all of these in different scenarios. They are different to a certain degree, and I liked it. I really like this shift, this change, because when I read it, saw in the comic now, I was like, that was very quick. It was very abrupt. Same thing with the Invincible War. I wish they stretched that out, actually. But anyway, in this one, they stretched it out, littered it throughout the episode, which was perfect because that is how PTSD works. You dissociate while you're talking to people or doing anything, and you see things or experience emotions, and then you work again after you calm down to a degree. I've had that. I've had that many times, and it's because of insanely crazy stuff that I've been through. Funny enough, it's not from actual confrontations and stuff. However, some of these has lingered in my mind afterwards. And it's not because I lost, not in the same way as this, but it's because of what could have happened and what happened possibly with somebody else that I saw that's close to me. Or when I couldn't help, when I was not there and some crazy stuff went off. That is some of the times that the PTSD really gets to you. And it takes years and years. Like, in all honesty, there's a point later in this episode that really was interesting for Mark. But if you really think about it, Mark, as a character, the level of emotional damage that his character takes by the end of the show, by the end of the comic, and even at this point in the show, is absolutely crazy. Like, this is the Viltrumite part of his brain right now, and he definitely needs help. Yeah, to me, yeah, okay, I'm not going to get too deep into that, but the point is, the visions was cool. Next up, Deb and Nolan's interaction and how he's not getting redemption yet. So at this point, it's been months. Like, it's been months since they've seen Nolan and Mark even. So she's instantly worried about Oliver, which is still recovering. And then on top of it, she's mad because they left their child, well, technically her child right now, because she adopted Oliver, on a different planet, which in her brain is like imagine this. Imagine you know that a state hospital is destroyed, it's horrible, there's druggies around, all that kind of stuff, and your child is there, and you know that the other parent, your partner, just left the child there. Or former parent in this case, because it's like when people divorced. Just with crazy aggravating circumstances in this situation. Imagine that. You would go psycho for your child. A mother that's really, like, the character of Debbie is very caring. So she obviously is just freaking out. And then on top of it, she's so mad at her ex, Nolan now, for what he did. So, to her, this is abuse. And she needs to do something about it. That's why when Nolan is like, let's talk a little bit. And she's like, you're not sleeping here. Wherever you sleep, wherever you stay, you're not staying here. That is so warranted. And it's a change from the comics that really is needed. Because in the comics, it's a bit different. And I'm not going to spoil that completely for the people that just watch the show. But it's very different. Anyway, next up. How they handled Alan's change as a character. This was very cool because actually, subtly, they changed how Alan reacted in the previous episode. So, this is a spoiler warning again because a lot of the stuff is foreshadowing and stuff. So, click off if you do not want to get spoiled again. Alright, for the people that stay. So, in the comic, Alan changes as a character, and it's a problem that the fandom has. Like, I'm really upset still why they went this direction with his character, because it's not congruent with his personality. It doesn't fit how, let me say it like this, it doesn't fit how he was thinking, what he was doing. It literally does not fit with his character at all in the long run. Now, yes, people change, but this was not a long enough time period to change him. He didn't go through enough to change mentally and physically to start doing these negative and absolutely illogical decisions. So, what I'm kind of talking about is, Alan betrays essentially betrays Mark and all the Viltrumites in the long run in the comics. Now, I'm not going to say how, for in case some people are like, I'm curious now, what the hell? Wait until the show gets animated, or, okay, no, wait until the show comes out. It's a lot more fun that way, trust me. However, this was, as I said, not congruent, and it was bad writing. This was a writing mistake that they're trying to fix. They're trying to make it make sense. And that is good. That is very bloody good. Because in the previous episode, how Alan reacted in many of the situations, like him not essentially helping Oliver, like it's a small detail. He was not really adamant to help Oliver. And then also him not saving Oliver when he should have tried. He really didn't try too hard to save him after he got hurt. And then on top of it, before that exact moment there, when Fadus gets killed. Now, this is a spoiler again. If you watch this video and you didn't watch the previous episode, then it's on you. It's not on me, it's on you. Fadus gets brutally killed in front of him. And Fadus is like a father to him. He was his hero. They show Alan's face for a split second where his reaction is just like, what happened? What? Fuck. And that is a subtle change, which is great, because in the comics, he just fights on and then does stupid shit and betrays the Viltrumites, Mark, Nolan, etc. for no real good reason. And even other decisions he makes is just illogical crap. Now, in this episode, that episode and this episode, they changed that. So first he reacts like this, he doesn't save Oliver, and then when his responsibilities come in as the leader of the coalition of planets, etc., how he reacts to what he needs to do is different, and he feels overwhelmed. And then he learns that Fadus had the Scourge Virus 2.0 as a backup plan for in case he dies. Funny enough, though, Fadus didn't know if all of them would survive. So this was a gamble and a half. However, obviously because this is what the comics wanted, this is the narrative that they wanted to move on with. This led to Alan watching this videotape that Fadus left for him, and getting the gears to roll. And funny enough, when he's on call with the other planets, his girlfriend actually reacts to him wanting to do something like illogical in the background. She's like, and then she supports him, but it's like, kind of like that, like, I don't like what he was doing there, like how he reacted there, and his decision making is not right. I don't like this. And it's a sign, it's them foreshadowing that his character is about to shift, because the emotional impact of seeing his mentor, his superhero that he grew up with, the guy that got him as strong as he is right now, season 2, seeing that person die the way he did at the hands of the peak Viltrumite, that snapped something in his head. And them foreshadowing it, showing few things, then slowly moving in that direction makes more sense. So if they do it in the next season more, and then it starts snowballing, then it will make more sense in the long run. And then it will make sense when he betrays everybody using the Scourge Virus and all that kind of stuff. However, there's a twist with that as well, like a very crazy one, and I'm not going to spoil it. Alright, so I love that they're handling that correctly. Next up, hold on guys, sorry. Next up, Debbie and Paul's breakup during the time skip that happened. So since we saw Paul, and also since Nolan came to get all of the warriors together to fight in the Viltrumite war, there was 8 months or so, maybe longer, and in that time period, because Debbie 1 felt pressure to move in and move too fast with Paul, and then on top of it, her ex reappeared, scrambling her emotions and how she's thinking, etc. And then on top of it, even more of the tumble dry effect is knowing that her son might die in space, fighting a war versus somebody, fighting a war for Nolan, the guy that did atrocious things to her and her son, and the planet. So, that was such a pressuring time period for her character, and any person in real life, any human in real life, would not really be able to take that. So, that led them to break up. So when we see them again, they kind of tied a knot that they didn't do in the comics. They fixed this by saying that them speaking to each other and Paul saying this is probably why we didn't work. And that is true. Now, Debbie is vulnerable emotionally and she needs somebody to be there for her. Crazy thing is, she can't let Mark be there for her because he's going through a lot of shit right now. He's weak, he is struggling right now. So she has to step back and not really pressure him to look after her. Plus, she's a very strong, independent woman. She feels, I need to be stronger here. Meanwhile, inside she knows, I need somebody. I need help. And that's actually a theme in this episode, to be honest, for all of them. Even Nolan. Very interesting to note. Let's move on. Nolan meets with Cecil and, well, it's on the spot where the first season ended, where the craziest, most emotional part, in my opinion, of the show happened. Season 1 was such a good show. Like, that season there was such a good season of television. And the emotional weight that had was madness. So him going back there, after having the fight with Debbie essentially now, telling him to fuck off, it shows that he's still reflecting and working through this and thinking, how can I fix this? How can I fix this? How can I fix this massive mistake? And then Cecil pops up. And Cecil's like, what's up? Why the fuck are you here? Because Cecil got betrayed as well. 20 years they worked together. And still, the wound is still fresh. It's not that big of a time period since they saw each other again. Well, at that spot, since they witnessed this insanity. So Cecil's reaction being like, I'll never be scared of, like, not scared of you. It's true. This dude is like a god to him. And this god wanted to kill him at one point. And wanted to kill everybody. So he's horrified. Plus, it shows that, again, the emotional depth. Cecil is carrying that day with him. And that's why when he asks Nolan, he's like, do you really think it's smart to come back to this spot on this planet now? And Nolan's like, I'm trying to fix things. And Nolan doesn't know. Well, his brain is not able to comprehend that erasing 20 years of history with a lot of people by being absolutely the worst being, not human being, but being possible, and being so, how can I say this, not harsh, abrasive and destructive verbally and physically to those who loved you, who cared about you, who looked up to you. He does not comprehend that the damage he made is irreparable. It is irreparable. And the emotional weight of everything that's going on is just eating at everybody. Like you can see, Cecil is like, in all my years, whatever happened, people betrayed me here, left, right, and center. This was the biggest one. And that's how he's talking to it. It's like, you betrayed me just as badly as you betrayed your son, your wife, everybody on this planet that looked up to you. All the heroes, everybody, even the villains were freaking out about this. And the biggest point, and that's what I actually liked, is Cecil pointing out that he is at least trying to fix things with his son. He's like, he was actually challenging Nolan on what this spot, that broken piece of the mountain, meant. It was him being the worst father in existence. And Nolan, obviously hurt after Cecil tells him, get the fuck off of my planet, shows he's trying to comprehend this and still trying to figure out what he can do to fix things. However, he's slowly accepting that 99.9% chance that he's not going to be able to. Not in 10 years, 20, 15, 30. This is not fixable. However, something else that Cecil brings up is the war and how they think they won. It's like, you didn't win. That last episode, the way it ended, kind of showed that, I'm not going to spoil this for you in case nobody has watched this yet, but what happened there is that they won a few battles, but they didn't win the whole war. They destroyed a planet, but they didn't win the war. Because right now, the big bad is still out there, and he has 30 friends. 30 friends as strong or stronger than them. And that means their mission failed. They should have wiped them out. That was what the goal was. Wipe out the king and then wipe out the rest. That was literally what they wanted. They didn't achieve that. They did not win that war. Yeah, there's no other way. He nearly died. Everybody nearly died. They didn't win this war. And them acting like it is a mental gymnastics just to say, well, it was worth it. And understand the writing behind it. It's just so that these characters don't get stifled because of what happened there. However, the only character that is stifled about this is Mark. And we're going to move on now. Almost to that part. But anyway, Mark is the one that's definitely stifled after losing so badly. And clicking how bad the situation actually is. Like, to me, this is what Mark needed to accept in season 2. The only thing I will add later is training, but I'll get to that. Next up, Debbie going to Teleshkria, and here's where more spoilers is going to happen for the comics, guys. So again, click off if you do not want to get spoiled from here. So Nolan explains to Debbie that Oliver is on this other planet, Teleshkria, and we need to go there if we want to bring him back. Her being a typical mother and being a very strong, she has very strong motherly, maternal instincts. She's like, listen, I'm coming with. Now, she's not coming with because she wants Nolan. She's going for her child. So I really predict that definitely she's going to be like, screw you, Nolan. I'm here for my child. Stay away from me. The only thing that kind of hinted at something different was when they are on the ship, on their way there, and they got the nice view. However, Debbie was standing like this. She wasn't even looking at Nolan. She liked what she saw. She didn't like who she saw it with. I hope they expand on this so that if they get back together somehow, it makes sense. Or they just don't, because it will make more sense. Oh, I jumped. Sorry, guys. I actually jumped over one of the points. I just want to check something, guys. I'll be back now. Sorry, guys. Just checking up on the family. That's probably what you're hearing. Okay, so the point that I jumped over is Eve and Mark meeting again, chilling in bed, and then Eve drops the bomb that she had an abortion. So when I saw this, I was like, that doesn't seem legit. And the reason why is, in the comic, she gets pregnant, she loses her powers, guys. Now, her powers came back, she says. So I'm a little bit in the 50-50. Like, 50-50 here. Because her telling Mark she had an abortion and her powers is back insinuates she had an abortion, it's true and stuff. However, a part of this will change the direction of the show a lot. So this is spoilers again. If true, they change the show completely from here for Mark and Eve's relationship, which there's a lot of parts that I would change about the comics from here, like their relationship specifically. I like this idea, changing this, like scratch that, but I don't like the idea that Mark doesn't have a child from here because of this whole situation. So how are they going to work around this? That's why I think she just lied to Mark. Like, she's still pregnant because she is a little bit thick. I laughed when I saw it. I was like, hey, they're still doing thick Eve. But I liked when Mark told her, I didn't see your body, I saw you. And I was like, see, he cares for her. He doesn't give a crap how she looks. He just cares that she's not dead because of the enemy still being out there, and her being safe and his. You understand? All right, let me move back on. Okay, so I want to mention something else with Debbie and Nolan. So if you see how Nolan acts in season 1 compared to all these later seasons, especially this season, season 4, sorry. Nolan is very reserved. with Debbie and Mark. Although he does bring out his personality a lot more with Mark, but he is vastly reserved with Debbie because he knows what he did and he fears the repercussions of if, let's say, he raises his voice for her to do something and stuff. She'll freak out tenfold. And also, because he has no right, that's why. He's very reserved, he's tiptoeing around it. Just so that he can get on the good side. It's really interesting, and I liked it because that means he is trying. Like he said, I'm trying. However, he doesn't understand at this point that he needs to conceptualize everything and then start doing the positive stuff and then work towards doing things better, but accepting if people around him doesn't accept him. In real life, this is true as well. If you made a big F up, you have to accept that possibly these people will never want to see you again. Especially if you did something very crazy, like the end of season 1. Next up, Mark and Cecil's reunion and how indirectly Cecil cares about Mark, etc. So Cecil actually showed this after, when he met Nolan again. He clearly showed a heavy indicator that he cares about Mark. And it's something that he didn't show earlier this season and also in the previous season, like due to their disagreements. The thing is, it seems like the time gap when they were at war in space and stuff, gave them time to, gave Cecil time to really reevaluate how he felt about them and about Mark specifically and how he acted and stuff. That to me is progress. That's a little bit of progress for his character and stuff. So he'll maybe see things in Mark's light, and then probably appeal to whatever side of his brain he needs to, just to be able to talk to him without getting an irrational reaction, which irrationality we'll talk about at the end. I like this, and then when Mark has another episode where he dissociates completely and he sees some crap that happens with Cecil, shows that Mark cares about Cecil enough that he doesn't want him to die. And what happened with him is eating him up so bad that he's dissociating constantly, he's freaking out about stupid things. I completely resonated with how his reactions were. And it showed, again, progress for Mark. Now, small progress. His character development this season wasn't crazy, but this was really interesting. Now, that's when he mentioned, he's like, listen, you told me there's people I can talk to. Please, I need help. And I like that. This is something Mark needs. He needs mental help, and then he needs to train. He needs to work through things, and then needs to be stronger. If he does that, he can look after everybody a lot better. Him and Nolan, I hope. This would be so cool if they added this in as filler, where they train again and get stronger. It will make more sense within the comics as well. And if you know the comics' story, it will make more sense from here. Because the power thing. You can't bring in a big bad that is so much stronger that when you punch this person, your hand breaks or that person doesn't even flinch, doesn't move, you move back from how hard you punch them. You can't bring a character like that in a TV show or in the situation and be like, oh well, that's how it is, and this character's just gonna poop and get stronger. Doesn't make sense. Because, we know how people felt about that kind of stuff in Dragon Ball and in Bleach. So, okay, although in Bleach, if you really dive into it, it makes sense, but with Dragon Ball, it doesn't, for example. So, you cannot do that. You can't do that. I know you love your main character, etc., as a writer, Mr. Kirkman, but that is not right. So, I hope they change this and then work from there. Because you can't have a protagonist never be ready to face the next big bad. Well, the big bad. Mark and Cecil chat, got the care part, and then finally, we get to the last sequence of sequences of this episode. And that is Mark taking cruise around the world, etc., at golden hour in real life, well, in the show as well. And then, while already having visions constantly and needing to stop, which I think they didn't animate more of them, just because it's kind of, we know this is happening the whole time, even while he's flying, seeing the beauty of the world and thinking through this stuff. Most likely he needed to pause a few times, be like, and regain his composure and then continue just flying, relaxing, breathing. Because at this point, there's a false sense of safety. Mark was the only one that didn't feel safe since he got back. He didn't feel things were right. And yes, it's the PTSD, the mental issues, but 99% it was his gut feeling and his underneath radars going haywire. Like, there's something wrong still. And bam, everything gets confirmed when he's casually flying and he sees the big bad chilling there. And at first you can see him trying to think, oh, is this just my mental stuff again, me dissociating and hallucinating, or is this really there? Then he prepares and it's real, and that character pops up like real close to it, and it's like, yes, I am here. That's when they talk, and that's when the part that makes, like, it's supposed to be like a oh no moment, or kind of. In the comics it was that way, but here, because I already know what's going to happen, it's not that big of a boom, but it's still cool. Okay, so the big bad reveals that the Viltrumites are on Earth, all 37 of them. Excuse if I'm maybe say the wrong number. That number is arbitrary right now because they do die. A lot of people die. This show really kills off a lot of people. So, cool. There's 30 plus Viltrumites on Earth right now in plain sight, hidden, etc. And the big bad is like, listen, we're going to be chilling here and we will live amongst your people without causing issues. We will not aid you guys, which I wish they changed that, but I'll explain why. We will not aid them, we will not hinder them, we will not hinder you, we will not aid you. Everything will just move forward like normal. Now, in the comics, there's a bit more detail where actually they want to reproduce. Now, it's indirectly said here that they want to, because Mark is the perfect example of what is possible. And funny enough, the big bad, he says, I was chosen to bring back the Empire. And funny enough, he is the one. And that is very interesting. Now, he gives props while trying to move away from Mark, that Mark is the one that saved them. So he's actually telling the enemy, you saved us, and you saved your own planet. So Mark actually should have been there, like calm and realizing what this big bad said to him. But he doesn't. His irrationality, because of all the stuff he's went through, is just off of the scales. So that means he just wants to fight this big bad and kill him. Problem is, the big bad is right. Just before this, Mark geared up and struck him as hard as he can, and then continuously threw a few punches, but it didn't do zilch. It fuck all. And that is when the big bad said something very telling, and something that they're trying to hammer home they did in the comics, and they tried to hammer home in the show. And that is that Mark sometimes really can be illogical. He doesn't think with his head, he thinks with his heart. And the problem is, if you think with your heart, you make mistakes. And oddly enough, the whole truce that they just wanted to get here, which was proposed now, is beneficial for both parties. And Mark not seeing that is because of everything he's went through, the mental state, and his loss. He lost badly to this big bad. in the previous episode. So he can't really think past, this guy's just going to kill everybody, or kill me, or kill everything. So he's stuck with a mental wall there. And that's why when this big bad's like, listen, here's my proposal, and you really don't have an option actually. Because say no, I kill everybody. Say yes, and we move on with our own lives, etc. That's when Mark, I like how they changed how he thinks, and then says, I agree to your terms. And that's when the big bad tells him, well, he was flying away. And Mark is like, what have I done? And Mark instantly guilt trips himself. He's like, I'm bad and evil and horrible, and I've killed everybody. When the big bad stops, he's like, you saved everyone. You saved your people, and you saved your own race. And he's kind of trying to be a disciplined father-like figure right there in that moment, saying, stop. You did the right thing right now. It's the best thing for all of us. And that is very interesting. I love it. It's such an interesting part of the show that the villain, although he is the villain, was right here. And from here, if you know how the story goes, yes, there's a few crazy things that will happen still, but actually, this was the best decision that Mark could do. Like one of the best decisions out of the whole show. So Mark guilt tripping himself. That's why the big bad got frustrated with him. It's like, don't guilt trip yourself. You did the right thing. And it's something Mark will need to work through because of the PTSD, this mental anguish that he has gone through. Everything flashed through his mind just before he decided. That means Mark will be grappling with this, even worse than him grappling with the idea of killing people in the future. So all in all, great episode. Like I said, I don't know if I can say it's better than the previous one, but you can really say this one was the cherry on top of the cake because they want to leave the action for the next season, and it's going to be so good. I don't know. I'll check some more deep dives on the stuff that I missed, etc. Maybe make some videos about it, but I needed to do a structured video about this because my conclusion is this was peak. This was this one, the first season, and this season, the best. Third was season 3. Season 2 was quite rough. And funny enough, a lot of good shows have a bad season 2. Funny, okay, outside of Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad had a good season 2. A lot of people disagree, but no, they don't. No. Yeah. Okay, anyway, point is, this was a great season. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope the spoilers was not too heavy, but damn. This was such a good season. I like a lot of aspects. The only thing that the show needs to really address is the power scaling, and also we need Mr. Good Conquest. When I saw that Kirkman kind of said, yeah, we're contemplating this, we want to change this, that there is a different timeline where Conquest is good. Please, that he would have been such an asset in a different timeline to the main timelines people. So cool. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below. I have a function I need to go to while very tired, but man, I'm hyped now because of going through this and stuff. I'm a big fan of film and TV series and stuff like that. So I'm going to make more videos about this as well as the fighting. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Cheers.